Okay, so with scientific notation, what you do is you basically are going to move the decimal, so you have a number between 1 point something and 9 point something, and then you basically box up all the placeholding zeros by using an exponent of 10. So let's start with number 2. There's a decimal implied here, even though it isn't, and what I want to do is I want to move that decimal from here till it's right behind the 4, so I need to count how many times I move the decimal. I move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and since this number is larger than 1, I'll record it this way. I'll say 4.05. Now those are all my significant numbers, and then I say times 10 to the, and I moved it 6 times, so I'll say 10 to the positive 6. Now what you've got to remember is, what that's doing is, this 6 is telling me how many times I move the decimal, not how many zeros I have here, but it's telling me that I moved the decimal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Now let's try number 3, where we are moving the decimal the other way. So in this case, I want to move the decimal from here until it's right behind the 2. That means I'm going to be moving it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. But since this number here is less than 1, it's going to be to a negative 7th power. So I would record this as 2.33 times 10 to the negative 7th power. So now let's do the opposite. Let's try to take things out of scientific notation into standard and represent them as standard numerals. So in this case, what I see is I'm going to take the number 9.5 and I need to move the decimal 4 times, and the negative is telling me that the number is less than 1. So I'm going to be moving the decimal 4 times this way. So I'm going to record this as 0.00095. So if you notice, what I've done is I've moved the decimal 4 times. I've moved it from here 1, 2, 3, 4. So this number here and this number here mean the same thing. Let's try doing it the other way with a positive exponent of 10. We'll try doing number 6 here. So in this case, I'm going to move the decimal 7 times, but I'm going to move it 7 times this way, making a number that's larger than 1. So that would give me 8, 9, 8. So at this point, I've moved the decimal 2 times. I need to move it a total of 7. That means I need 5 placeholding zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then just so I don't confuse my readers, I'm going to go ahead and put in my comma. So I'm going to put a comma here and a comma here. Okay, so to enter this data, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit 7.2. I'm sorry, 7.8, and then what I'm going to say is the second function, and then I'm going to hit the comma button, which is immediately above the 7 when we see EE. Now what that does is, that brings up the E on my calculator, which really means times 10 to the, and now I'm going to tell it what power it is. So I'm not going to say times of 10, I'm just going to say 9. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply that by the 2.1. And now the way I'm going to say times 10 to the, so I'm simply going to hit the second function and the EE key, and that basically says times 10 to the, and I simply enter the 12, and now you see what I have is 7.8 times 10 to the 9th times 2.1 times 10 to the 12th, and when I hit enter, what I'll get is my answer. Now what I have to keep in mind though is that I don't want to write down this full answer. I'll write it down for right now. 1.638, and when we see E on our calculator, we're allowed to either write it as E or as times 10 to the. Me personally, I like to write it as times 10 to the, so I'm going to say times 10 to the 22nd power. If you want to put E22, that's okay, but what you have to keep in mind is this, that this is not quite correct yet, and the reason is we need to round it for significant figures. We have 2 significant figures in the number 7.8, and we have 2 significant figures in 2.1. Therefore, we have to round this to 2 significant figures. We keep the 1, we keep the 6. Since 3 is less than 5, I'm going to leave it as a 1 and a 6. So the way I should round this, therefore, will be as 1.6 times 10 to the 22nd. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do 2.21 times 10 to the, so we're going to hit the EE button, and now we're going to say, we're going to use this one here, and then we simply enter the exponent, and what you'll see is we have times 10 to the negative 18th, then we're going to say divided by, and we say 1.406 times 10 to the, which is our EE button again. Now we're going to say 4. You'll see now we have both our values here, and when we say enter, what we'll get is this. So I'm going to write this one down. So what we have here is 1.57183 blah 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 times 10 to the negative 22. The problem is I can't have nearly that many significant figures. I have 3 significant figures here, I have 4 significant figures here, therefore I have to limit myself to 3 significant figures. I'm going to keep the 1, I'm going to keep the 5, and I'm going to keep the 7, and since the 1 is less than 5, I'm going to leave the 7 as it is. So when I round this, what I'll get is 1.57 times 10 to the negative 22nd power.